Alex Reinshagen is an experienced security leader with a 26-year career in firefighting, criminal law enforcement, immigration law enforcement, and global security operations. Skilled in a variety of disciplines, including asset protection, executive protection, physical security, crisis preparedness, counterterrorism, and risk assessment, is now the managing director of Viking Security Consulting LLC. Before becoming a police officer at the local level, U.S. Border Patrol agent in California, and Supervisory Special Agent in the United States Department of State graduate studies at the University of South Carolina propelled his desire to become a public servant and member of the U.S. Department of State. Having served in Thailand, Egypt, Slovakia, Bangladesh, Iraq, and China, he retired from the State Department as a Senior Liaison to FBI headquarters and is now an instructor for the Justice Department and State Department. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today Alex Reinshagen. How are you doing, Alex?
Peter, good. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's quite lovely to have you on today, and you have such an amazing, beautiful bio.
Well, thank you.
Quite lovely, really. I love the sound of it. Love the sound of it. Yeah, yeah. So, Alex, I want to first say congratulations on your upcoming release, American Diplomat, which is scheduled to be released on the 21st of June, I think tomorrow, as at the time of conducting this interview. Yeah. So, could you tell us how the book came to be and what inspired you to write it?
Well, Peter, it's I always wanted to write a book, but this particular book,
Mm.
which is my memoir, I didn't plan on publishing this book. This was basically it was a letter to my wife and kids.
Oh.
It was my story, and I simply wanted to put in writing all the
Mm.
things that I'd been through and had done ever since I was a child, and how I selected the career path that I did, law enforcement and security,
Yeah.
and just stories about my career and my exploits traveling around the world. Uh, it was just
Mm.
a story. It was my story, just to put it on paper, kind of like a diary, and never
Oh.
planned on publishing this.
Wow.
And my wife is my editor, and she said, this is such a good book. Why don't you try to get it published? So I
Mm.
did. I approached several publishers, and I got a few offers to publish it in both the United States and in Great Britain. And I selected a publisher, and I've been working with the publisher here
Mm.
in the States for months. And he said it's a great book. So I'm happy, and I'm curious to see what your audience and what my readers think about it. So I'm looking for some feedback on it.
Yeah, that's actually amazing, really. And I love your take on that. I love your take on that. And for readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what to expect in terms of themes picking up the book? And also, would you like to tell us the genre that the book is classified under?
It's actually fiction. Now, my publisher
Yeah.
wanted to categorize it as fiction, but it's a memoir,
Oh.
so it's both fiction and nonfiction. And the
Oh.
reason I say, and people have asked me that, and they say, "How can it be fiction and nonfiction?" And I said, "Well, what I have done, I can't divulge the names, the places, the locations,
Mm.
uh, the investigations that I've been involved in, the people that I protected. So I can't divulge that information because it's sensitive or classified. So I had to change a lot of the sensitive information in the book.
Mm.
The entire book is based on real life, actual, factual stories and information, in my
Oh.
opinion. Uh, but since I had to fictionalize it, uh,
Yeah.
uh, since I had to fictionalize my stories, it
Mm.
is classified as categorized as fiction.
Interesting. Interesting. I love the sound of it. Thank
Yeah,
you for mentioning. Thank you for writing.
sure.
And also,
Yeah,
I love to ask you, why did you write your memoir? I mean, and again, I like to ask you, is it entirely non-fiction or fiction, or is it a combination of both?
it certainly is a combination. I speak about how I grew up and how I decided to get into the career path that I did. And many of us, uh, we do something for our career because we like doing it, or
Yeah,
we have a lot of money doing
absolutely.
it. Some of us do something in our career that we don't like doing. I I realized at a young age that I wanted to get into law enforcement, and I thought that was beneficial to me. At first, I thought, how lucky can I be knowing what I wanted to do since I was a young child?
Mm,
Because even kids in high school or at the university, they have no idea what they want to do still to this day. And that's fine. I knew as a youngster what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But later, I started to think, is it a good thing that I knew early? Maybe I
mm,
missed some other opportunities. Maybe I should have opened my mind up a little bit and explored some other areas, something
mm,
else. So, and I think a lot of people do this. So I think this is going to resonate with a lot of the readers. So I continually ask myself throughout my book, throughout my career,
yeah.
was this a big career path for me? Maybe I should have done something else.
Wow.
So you're going to have to read the book to find out how it ends. Uh, but everybody has these thoughts going through their head. And I wanted to basically share my trajectory, my life trajectory, my career trajectory. And it's going to, I think, resonate with many readers, if not everybody, because we're always thinking, should I have done this differently? You know, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just human nature to rethink things and look back from time to time and say, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I should have gotten in something else. Uh,
Mm,
so I wrote this and my wife said, a lot of people are going to be really interested in this to see where you go with it and what you say about it. And I've got some great stories in
yeah.
the book.
That's
So
actually amazing.
get it published. So I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, that's amazing actually. And your response to that want to make me to ask you a question that just pop up in my head.
Sure.
I'd love to ask you, how does your career, I mean, you've worked in different years, border patrol agent in California, you've traveled and served in different countries. And also, I want to ask you, how does a career influenced your writing? Was your writing influenced based on the experiences you've had working with this agency, or you just, start all of a sudden? Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. It was very simple to write this book, um, simply because it's based on true stories. So I didn't have
Mm,
to think up anything. Like now I'm writing my second book now, and it's fiction. And I have to think about what I'm writing and where my character is going to go. And I have to
yeah,
tie the end in with the front. So there's a lot of thought there. But
yeah,
with my memoir with American Diplomat, I sat down, Peter, from day one, and I would spend 5 or 6 hours a day writing, and it was so easy for me because it was all in my head. Um, I didn't have to come up with a story or new ideas because I had
yeah,
everything I had already. Uh,
absolutely.
So my career, my travels, that definitely um, had an influence on my writing. I had so many stories to tell, and I would say,
Mm,
okay, when I lived in Egypt, what interesting happened in Egypt? So I would think about when I arrived there and what I did at the American Embassy and the friends that I met and
mm,
the restaurants that I went to. So I said, okay, I can write about this. And before long, I would write 10 or 15,000 words on one story,
Wow. It's
say
huge.
six or eight pages on one story, and then I put another story together, and it's another 6 or 8 pages.
Wow.
So quickly, these pages and the length of my manuscript quickly added up. Uh,
Mm.
and I kept writing and writing, and then I think, okay, after Egypt, I moved to Slovakia, and that's where I met my wife.
Wow.
So what happened that was interesting there, you know? So I had it all in my head, and now I'm
Mm.
just putting it down on paper to codify or to memorialize what I had done. And again, this wasn't really meant for, this was only meant for my wife and kids. It wasn't meant
Mm.
for everybody. And my wife said, you know what? I think others would like to read this. So why don't you try to get it published? So then I started to think, okay, we can do this. Let's see if there's any interest in it. So yes, the travel has definitely had an impact on my writing.
Mm.
Whether it was California or South Carolina or Washington, D.C., or Iraq or Egypt
Yeah.
or Bangladesh.
Mm.
Uh, and I can put myself in there, and therefore I could paint that picture. And with my wife's help as an editor, I can put the reader into
Yeah.
Bangladesh, into this environment.
Absolutely.
Was able to paint that picture. So I've gotten some good feedback so far. People just love the book. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, the traveling certainly helped. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually amazing, really. I mean, considering the numbers of countries you've, visited and served in, it's quite amazing even on itself to spike up a story. It's really lovely. And I would also like to ask you that, knowing that this is a memoir, do you have any challenges or difficulty in the process of writing it and putting it together? If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Definitely challenges putting this together because there are certain things that I don't want to divulge to anybody. Um, of course, sensitive family information, but
Absolutely.
also I talk about, growing up, and I talk about my father a bit, and I talk about, my siblings a bit.
Hmm.
Of course, I had to really temper my writing so I didn't divulge,
Much
information
information. Yeah.
that nobody else needs to know, right? But also when it came to writing a story about my travels or conducting an investigation or making an arrest,
Yeah.
um, I actually did. Uh, uh, I wrote about specific arrests that I've made,
Hmm.
um, and that's rather sensitive. Those are some sensitive topics, so it's pretty difficult. But as far as uh, difficulties writing it, no, it
Yeah.
wasn't difficult writing it. It was difficult determining what I could write about and what
Yeah.
I should.
Not right
So
about.
I was employed. My employer was when I was, a special agent was the U.S. Department of State, and the State Department had to clear off on this book before I had it published because I do write about some times when I was an agent.
Hmm.
Um, I certainly couldn't divulge, sensitive information. So the U.S. government cleared off on this book for me. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Actually enjoy hearing you talk about this. It sounds quite lovely and quite compelling to me. And now, there's this question that I love asking authors writing in the nonfiction category, especially in the memoir session. I love asking, you've gotten your memoir out to the world. How does it make you feel knowing that your story it's outside there and a stranger is picking it up to read? What feeling do you have within you? Would you like to talk about that? I don't know if it's something you love to share.
sure, yes. I mean, and I tell people, look, this is my story. You don't have to like it. I would like to get feedback, on Amazon or
Goodreads.
other platforms, Books a Million, to see what people think about it. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what people think about my story. However, it doesn't affect the book. The book is finished.
Mm,
So, I feel myself that I'm a bit of an artist in writing the book. I think authors are artists. They are creators.
absolutely.
But my book is done. It's finished. So um, I don't need people to say, "Hey, you wrote about something that was no, you probably shouldn't have." Uh,
Mm,
I wrote about something that I thought would be interesting to others,
yeah.
and they would think about their lives a little bit and what it was like for them growing up and and choosing a career path. So
Mm,
to me, it's okay what I wrote about. I'm fine with people. I'm fine with the world knowing this. Uh,
yeah.
I'm okay with that. And I hope they like it and get something out of it. And if they don't like it, that's okay too. Um,
Yeah.
I'm okay either way. It doesn't affect me. I just hope they enjoy the read, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I asked that because I've spoken to quite a lot of memo writers, and whenever I ask, how does it make you feel? It's hilarious. I get to hear answers like, "Oh, Peter, it makes me feel naked. It makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel overly exposed to the world. It makes me feel timid. Yeah, somebody's reading about my story. Well, I have no idea who they are. You know, it's an amazing." It's an amazing feedback sharing to know about what they think of having their memoir out there, especially
Yeah.
if you're writing something very striking, say on the theme of family abuse, on the theme of, some personal striking experiences and stuff like that. Yeah, I love hearing your take about this
Yeah,
actually. Thanks for sharing.
I've spoken to some others who wrote their memoir, and one in particular. Recently, I went to an author presentation,
Yeah.
and and this particular author wrote about a disorder that she had, and I asked her, why did you write this? Why did you? I mean, a lot of people know about this now, and she said, my family and friends knew about it already. But I wrote it to try to help others that are in the same situation. Um, I didn't write my book to necessarily help others,
Mm,
in that sense of self-help book, but maybe
yeah.
just to expand their mind and say, okay, this particular author, this guy did this, and he went this direction in his life. And I just hope that the reader kind of thinks about what their life was like and how they did it
Mm,
and how they want to be remembered. Because I'm
yeah.
retired. I retired from the government, so
Wow.
I talked about how I want to be remembered. Uh,
Mm,
do I want to be remembered as a special agent or a police officer or an investigator, or do I want to be remembered as somebody that's different? So
mm.
I do talk about that in my book, and I hope that others say, I got to rethink how I want to be remembered after I'm long gone.
Absolutely.
So I do discuss that in my book also.
Mm. Wow. Wow, that's such a thoughtful answer you've given, quite educative and quite
Mm.
pulling as well. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
sure. Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it. And now, Alex, apart from American Diplomat, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
So I'm working on my second book. So American Diplomat, it was nonfiction. It was my memoir. It's categorized as fiction, and that's fine. But I want to start writing, and I have already started writing fiction. So my next
Yeah.
book, it is an international espionage thriller. Um, my main character is in the CIA, which
Oh,
I know a lot about, and he's overseas. So this is it's called The Origin, and it'll be out next year. Uh, but
wow.
I hope. I hope to write 3 or 4 books in this series. Uh,
Oh,
and it's not the main character is going to change with each book. They're all
mm,
going to be intertwined, but it's going to be a different perspective, looking at different characters from the initial book. The
yeah,
second book concentrate on a different character in a different country, and the third book it'll be slightly different. So the origin is going to be my next series, which I'm about halfway through
yeah.
writing now.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes, yes.
That's lovely to know. Well done. Sounds like we've got quite a lot of amazing stuff ongoing. And I hope you find some time to sleep.
Yeah, I have time. I'm also a contributing writer for the Bruges Group in London.
Oh,
It is a
oh,
conservative think tank, and you can get on the Bruges Group website, Bruges, the Bruges Group. So I just started writing for them
that's
as a
great.
contributing writer, and I hope that I will expand that and start writing for other
That's
politics.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex. And I would like to ask you, what sort of advice do you offer other writers who are open to write in your particular genre or open to having a memoir out there? What sort of advice would you give struggling writers in this category?
Well, that's a question that all writers ask me because I'm a member of 2 writers groups here where I live in
Oh,
Georgia. One is a memoir group, and one is a fiction group. So I see writers struggling with their work and with getting published.
yeah.
And and I tell them first you have to have a great story. You have a great story to tell. Secondly, it has to be really well written if you want to publish it traditionally.
Mm,
Uh, if you don't want to be a self-published author, which anybody can be self-published, and publish their book on Amazon. Um, but I'm a traditionally published author, so which basically means that a publisher agreed to a contract with me to write this.
mm,
And I tell them, uh, step back and take a look at who is reviewing your book for you, because you need somebody to critique your writing. Um, One chapter at a time, every 100 pages or every 50 pages. Don't just write 2 or 3 pages and then have somebody critique it. Write more than that. Write 2 or 3 or 4 chapters,
yeah,
um, 5 or 6 chapters, and have somebody critique it that is going to be honest with you. But whoever is going to critique it, they shouldn't be a family member or your friend, because they're just not really going to be honest with you. It's very difficult to get somebody to review your work that's going to be
mm,
honest. My wife is an editor, so she was honest with me, and helped me out tremendously. But those critique groups are very important. Um, However, uh, you've got to understand that if you ask 5 people to review several chapters of your book, you're
yeah,
probably going to get 5 different opinions.
yeah, absolutely.
Right. And that's the problem that writers have. You've got to
Yeah,
choose one way and go with it.
yeah,
Uh, and if you don't appreciate or like somebody's feedback, um, then perhaps don't ask them anymore to critique your work. Move
yeah,
on to somebody else. Because
absolutely.
I received some feedback that to me it didn't make sense, and that's not the direction I was headed.
Absolutely.
Or that particular writer is simply not a very good writer. So I said, no, I don't want that person to review my work. So you really got to be honest with yourself and be honest with others. So
Absolutely.
that's what I would suggest to people.
Yeah,
Find yourself a really good editor.
yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing advice, and I'm hoping that viewers would love to utilize it. Thank you so much for sharing. Much appreciated. Yeah, before we call it a day today, Alex, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview, and you'd love the viewers to know? Is there any more thing?
Well, I was speaking with my wife about this yesterday,
Yeah.
and she's an avid reader, and I'm a writer, and she said, well, we know a lot of authors, and they write about one genre, and it's the same thing. It's just a different story. Might be the same location. It might be the same town, but they pigeonhole themselves into one type of writing. I'm not saying that is bad. For instance, John Grisham. John Grisham, and I think he's a great writer. I love his work, but he writes about the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Look, I wish I was as popular as him and as well as a writer as he is. But with my book, it's attractive to students that want to get into diplomacy and foreign policy. So I'm going to be
Hmm.
speaking at a couple of universities here in the US.
Interesting.
I'm already lined up to go speak with some university students. It
Wow.
is good for current law enforcement, retired law enforcement, government employees, even book clubs. Older folks
Yeah.
that have book clubs in the area. These are senior citizens.
Yeah.
They like it also. So the good thing about my book is that it's going to appeal to a lot of different types of readers. So I think
Absolutely.
that's why, and I think that's why my publisher is so excited about this book coming out, is because the genre is very wide. It's not for young adults. It's
Yeah.
not for only. It is for everybody.
Yeah.
And there is some overseas travel and excitement and arrests and diplomacy and a lot of learning and self-reflection that
Mm.
everybody can understand,
Yeah.
uh, and think about their life trajectory, whether they're just starting out or whether they're older. So I think that's probably the most interesting aspect of my book, American Diplomat.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And I love your take on that. Love your take on that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me to your show. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And upon publication, where can interested viewers get a copy of American Diplomat?
You can go on my author website, which is my name, alexreinshagen.com, and you
Yeah.
can buy it from there, or you can go on any Amazon, anywhere in the world. Amazon carries it as well.
Yeah.
So would of course, I can sign copies and mail them out. I've already got a number of folks that want me to sign the copies for them, and I'm shipping them around the world. They were already lined up saying, "Hey, I used to live in Jerusalem, or I work in Jerusalem, or I used to live in
Oh,
Thailand. So can you send me a signed copy because you discuss Thailand quite a bit." So
yeah.
I am sending those around the world as well. So yeah, alexreinshagen.com is where you can get it, or
Yeah.
Amazon, or anywhere
Yeah.
books are sold.
Absolutely. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Alex Reinshagen's books directly on Amazon and also on other platform. I also left a link to his website on his social media following or possible followings. So thank you so much, Alex, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it and wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. It's lovely doing this. I love it wholeheartedly.
Good, good.